Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naistiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, conclusion, text number 48 onwards. Sahajam karma kaunteya sadosham api na tyajit sarvarambha hi doshena dhumen agnir ivavritaha. So before this shloka, last shloka, Krishna says, it is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Duties prescribed according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reactions. So again, this, continuing on that theme, Krishna says, every endeavor is covered by some fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Therefore, one should not give up the work born of its nature. O son of Kunti, even if such work is full of fault. And if we give up work and thinking, oh, I don't want to do this, I would rather be doing the other work. But if that doesn't suit my consciousness, that doesn't suit my nature, then I'll not be satisfied. Basically, he is telling Arjun, you are a Kshatriya, act like a Kshatriya. Don't think you are a Brahman and you want to act like a Brahman. In conditioned life, all work is contaminated by the material modes of nature. Even if one is a Brahman, he has to perform sacrifices in which animal killing is necessary. Similarly, a Kshatriya, however pious he may be, has to fight enemies. He cannot avoid it. Similarly, a merchant, however pious he may be, must sometimes hide his profit to stay in business, or he may sometimes have to do business in the black market. These things are necessary, one cannot avoid them. Similarly, though a man is a Shudra serving a bad master, he has to carry out the order of the master, even though it should not be done. Despite these flaws, one should continue to carry out his prescribed duties, for they are born out of his own nature. Now, these duties of Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, these are mentioned in scriptures. Krishna himself is telling what a Brahman should do, what a Kshatriya should do. And Bhagavad Gita doesn't carry that much details, but other scriptures has more details of what they should be doing. So finding fault with these duties means finding fault with the scriptures. That's not a good idea. And then finding fault and saying, no, I cannot do this, I would rather be doing something else. But we cannot change our nature. Some cases have been in the scriptures, like Vishwamitra Muni. Vishwamitra Muni, he was a Kshatriya and then he became a Brahman, a Rishi. Not just a Rishi, he became a Brahma Rishi. And on the other side, Parshuramji was born as son of Brahman, but he became a Kshatriya. He killed so many Kshatriyas. Those are exceptions. Those are exceptions. They change their nature completely. Of course, there is another story behind it. When they were born, that story comes in Srimad Bhagavatam. And how they were born, and there's a detail. And then these two boys were given benediction that they will change their nature later on. But other than that, even if somebody comes to Krishna consciousness, his basic nature still remains the same. It doesn't change. He can become a Vaishnava, and as a Vaishnava, he can act as a Brahman or as an administrator or as a Vaishya to do some business or take care of cows or farming. But the basic nature still remains. It's not that easy to change our sanskars, our nature, our consciousness. It's not easy. A very nice example is given here, and although fire is pure, still there is smoke. Yet smoke does not make the fire impure. Even though there is smoke in the fire, fire is still considered to be the purest of all elements. If one prefers to give up the work of a Kshatriya and take up the occupation of a Brahman, he is not assured that in the occupation of a Brahman there are no unpleasant duties. One may then conclude that in the material world, no one can be completely free from the contamination of material nature. This example of fire and smoke is very appropriate in this connection. When in winter time one takes a stone from the fire, sometimes the smoke disturbs the eyes and other parts of the body, but still one must make use of the fire despite disturbing conditions. Similarly, one should not give up his natural occupation because there are some disturbing elements. Rather, one should be determined to serve the Supreme Lord by his occupational duty in Krishna consciousness. That is the perfectional point. When a particular type of occupation is performed for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, all the defects in that particular occupation are purified. When the results of work are purified, when connected with devotion service, one becomes perfect in seeing the self within, and that is self realization. So every occupational duty has some faults. Actually, it doesn't have any faults because it's all designed by the Supreme Lord. But because we have some shortcomings in our nature, suppose somebody is a Brahman, but there could be some shortcoming because nobody is perfect, then he might not like some of the activities of a Brahman. And he says there is some fault. Fault is not there, fault is in us. Similarly, a Kshatriya, he has to fight, he has to kill. And many times if he has to kill his relatives also if it is required. And then he cannot say no, I don't like this, and I only like this. And Prabhupada used to say this is not like a kitchen or restaurant religion. Restaurant religion is like when we go to restaurant, we just order the things we like. We don't order the things we don't like. So religion or the occupational duty is not something we choose. Okay, I'm going to take this only and not the others. We have to take the whole thing. So even in devotional service, when we have some services to perform, we shouldn't be choosy that no, I'm going to just do this much and not the other thing. Then what will happen? Perfection or purification will take some more time. And for the Varnashram system, it is said that if one performs his duties of his particular Varna and ashram for 100 lifetimes purely, and there must be some people who are doing it completely, purely. Because if somebody does it for 100 lifetimes, then he gets to the position of Brahmaji, Lord Brahma. And since there are so many Brahmas because there's so many unlimited universes and every universe has a Brahma, so there are living entities who are performing those duties perfectly. So it's not impossible thing to do. It just one has to make up his mind. That's all. Text 49. Asakta buddhi sarvatra jitatma vigat spriha nashkarmya siddhim paramam sannyasena digacchati. One who is self-controlled and unattached and who disregards all material enjoyments can obtain by practice of renunciation the highest, perfect stage of freedom from reaction. Real renunciation means that one should always think himself part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and therefore think that he has no right to enjoy the results of his work. Since he is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, the results of his work must be enjoyed by the Supreme Lord. This is actually Krishna consciousness. Since he is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, the results of his work must be enjoyed by the Supreme Lord because he is part and parcel. So whatever work he does, it has to be done for the satisfaction of the Supreme. So this is actually Krishna consciousness. A person acting in Krishna consciousness is really a sannyasi, one in the renounced order of life. So sannyas doesn't mean putting on saffron cloths, Bhagavad color. Sannyas means within the heart, the consciousness is like that. Whatever I'm doing, it's for the pleasure of Krishna. Now, many times these mentalities, they overlap. There's a overlap of whether I'm doing it for my pleasure or for Krishna's pleasure. Sometimes we think I'm doing it for Krishna's pleasure, but most of it could be for my pleasure, for my ego. And the person who's performing those activities, he thinks I'm a sannyasi, I'm renounced, but he might not be. And he might not be even be able to see it. This is actually how Maya works. By such a mentality, one is satisfied because he's actually acting for the Supreme. Thus, he is not attached to anything material. He becomes accustomed to not taking pleasure in anything beyond the transcendental happiness derived from the service of the Lord. A sannyasi is supposed to be free from the reactions of his past activities. But a person who's in Krishna consciousness automatically attains this perfection without even accepting the so-called order of renunciation. This state of mind is called Yoga Ruda, or the perfection state of yoga, as confirmed in the 3rd chapter. One who is satisfied in himself has no fear of any kind of reaction from his activity. So there were 2 terms, I know it's difficult to remember, that happened in 3rd chapter. Yoga Ruda and what was the other word? Yoga Ruda is a perfection, and there's the other term which means the starting of yoga process. I believe it's on 6th chapter, not 3rd chapter, sorry. I'm forgetting the technical term. So the perfection is when we do everything for the pleasure of Krishna. And this is what Krishna is. Why is he telling Arjuna? Because Krishna is pretty much saying, I want you to fight. Don't think you can just run away and do it for my pleasure. Text 50. Siddhim prapto yatha brahma tathapnoti nibodhame samaseneva konteya nishtha jnanasya ya para. Yeah, it was Yoga Ruda and Yoga Rukshu. Yeah, those 2 terms were there. O son of Kunti, learn from me how one who has achieved this perfection can attain to the supreme perfectional stage, Brahman, the stage of highest knowledge, by acting in the way I shall now summarize. The Lord describes for Arjuna how one can achieve the highest perfectional stage simply by being engaged in his occupational duty, performing the duty for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One attains the supreme stage of Brahman simply by renouncing the result of his work for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. That is a process of self-realization. The actual perfection of knowledge is in attaining pure Krishna consciousness. That is described in the following verses. So one attains a supreme stage of Brahman simply by renouncing the result of his work. So he is not saying renouncing the work, renouncing the result of the work for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Now they are the statement is perfect, but there could be many interpretations. How do we know Supreme Lord is satisfied by our work or the results of our work? If we give the results of our work, how do we know if I'm really giving the results of my work? How do we know I'm completely renounced? There's so many things. So that is a reason one needs a bona fide spiritual master to guide him how to act on these instructions. Text 51 through 53. Buddhya vishuddhya yukto dhrityatmanam niyamya cha shabdadin vishyan stikva ragadvesho vidasya cha vivitta sevi lagvashi yatva kaya manasaha dhyana yoga paro nityam vairagyam samupashita ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodham parigriham vimunchya nirmamah shanto brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Being purified by his intelligence and controlling the mind with determination, giving up the objects of sense gratification, being freed from attachment and hatred. One who lives in a secluded place, who eats little, who controls his body, mind, and power of speech, who's always in trance and who is detached, free from false ego, false strength, false pride, lust, anger, and acceptance of material things, free from false proprietorship, and peaceful. Such a person is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. So this word self-realization, it's not that easy. It's not just by reading Prabhupada's books we become self-realized. We have to develop these qualities. Always in trance, detached, free from false ego, false strength, false pride, lust, anger, free from false proprietorship, and peaceful. It's not that easy, self-realization. In fact, if we consider really deeply, we love to call ourselves devotees, not just devotees. Now even that's a small word. We love to think of ourselves as pure devotees. We're not even devotees yet. Devotee comes much after this self-realization. Self-realization is first step in the path of devotion service. The bhakti starts when we are self-realized. Before that, we are trying or we are struggling to be a devotee. And not just ourselves, we like to call others also. Oh, you are a pure devotee. You are okay. From our perspective, he could be a little more purer, not more purer, little more pure in comparison. But still, we don't know what's inside him or her. But it's and we hardly know if he is self-realized, that soul is self-realized or not. Nevertheless, the path is wonderful. Whatever Prabhupada has given us, the practices, they're wonderful. If we keep on practicing them, if we keep on working on them, we'll definitely have some some advancement, and some hope is there. But to consider ourselves pure devotees, or consider that I'm such a big devotee and you're not such a big devotee, that's sort of nonsense actually. When one is purified by intelligence, he keeps himself in the mode of goodness. Thus, one becomes controller of the mind and is always in trance. So, this is the mode of goodness quality, that he becomes controller of the mind. Our mind is not at all in our control. If somebody has any doubt, think, just analyze it when we are chanting. It's never in control and is always in trance of Krishna, Krishna's activities, Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's dealings with others. That's what he's always thinking of, always meditating upon. He's not attached to the objects of sense gratification and is free from attachment and hatred in his activities. So, hatred is actually another kind of attachment. Hatred and attachment are two sides of the same coin. So, when we hate something, we actually attach to it negatively. Such a detached person naturally prefers to live in a secluded place. He does not eat more than what he requires, and he controls the activities of his body and mind. He has no false ego because he does not accept the body as himself, nor has he a desire to make the body fat and strong by accepting so many material things. Means his life is very simple. His eating is very, very simple. Because he has no bodily concept of life, he is not falsely proud. He is satisfied with everything that is offered to him by the grace of the Lord, and he is never angry in the absence of sense gratification. Means he is a very simple life, very simple person. Nor does he endeavor to acquire sense objects. Thus, when he is completely free from the false ego, he becomes non-attached to all material things. And that is a stage of self-realization of Brahman. That stage is called the Brahma Bhuta stage. When one is free from the material conception of life, he becomes peaceful and cannot be agitated. This is described in Bhagavad Gita. Means this is such a simple life, very controlled eating, because from eating comes all the other senses get agitated. So control of eating is very, very important. Prabhupada gave us wonderful process of eating on the prasadam. But prasadam, yes, we've been given this process of cooking purely without onion, garlic, nice items, and then offering with love and devotion to the Supreme Lord, and then becomes prasadam because Krishna has accepted it. Now the question is, the real question, is it really cooked with love and devotion? Is it really offered with love and devotion? That the food becomes prasadam? We have to think deeply. We have to analyze ourselves, our consciousness when we are preparing prasadam, preparing bhoga, preparing items for offering to Krishna. Most of the time, we feed him whatever we like to eat, we want to eat. And many times, Krishna or the deity of Krishna or Jagannath in our house, they're basically there so to keep us away from the feeling of being guilty. Why I say that? I want to eat something, maybe some cookie or some ice cream. Just bought that ice cream. Now I'll be guilty of eating if I don't offer it. Whether Krishna is going to accept it or not hardly matters. So he's my eating machine. Is I haven't cooked it with love and devotion. I haven't even offered it with love and devotion because ice cream is going to melt. So hurriedly I put a scoop of ice cream in the cup and just keep it in front of Krishna and put some tulsi leaf on it and just wait for 5 minutes or so because otherwise it's going to melt and it's not going to taste the same. So I just hurriedly run through the whole schedule, whole routine, and then I enjoy, I relish that ice cream. No, who in the world would even imagine if Krishna really accepted it and it has become prashadam? Not really. But we do that. Something is better than nothing, so better to eat like this than eat without offering. That's definitely true. But did it change my consciousness? Did it help in bringing any transformation in my heart, in my life? No. Then it doesn't help. At home, when we are cooking and when we are offering, I mean, this is not even ice cream, this is a full meal we are cooking to offer to Jagannathji or to Krishna in a temple. While cooking, we are thinking of plenty of other things. And many times, I don't want to say most of the time, so many times there are some arguments in the house and some fighting in the house, and our consciousness is disturbed. And with that consciousness, we are cooking. We all say, no, Jaisa an Vaisa man, but Jaisa man Vaisa an also is true because the consciousness of cook goes into the food he or she is preparing. So with that consciousness, I'm cooking, so it goes into the food. I'm angry, I'm disturbed, I'm frustrated, I'm depressed, and that consciousness goes into the food. And that food item, those food items we are offering to Krishna. So can you imagine if Krishna is really accepting it? He says, offer me with love and devotion. First prepare with love and devotion, because then that comes into the food. And that food, when we are offering to Krishna, that's what he accepts when it is properly done. Now let's imagine Prabhupada used to cook and offer to Krishna and then offer to all the devotees, all the people who are coming to attend his classes. So eating the cooking of the hand of Srila Prabhupada, which is definitely cooked with lots of love and devotion, and then offered to Krishna, and that prasadam somebody eats, definitely his heart is going to get transformed. No doubt about it. Why in all ISKCON temples, we, so many places, we sell prasadam, or we call it prasadam and sell it. I mean, but still it sells, and it sells better than outside. Why? Because people are not even getting that kind outside. They have some faith that whatever ISKCON is selling, it's prasadam. But if you go deep into it, look into it, it's not prasadam. Doesn't look like Krishna has accepted it or eaten it. No way. Still better than outside food because at least it's some mentality, whether grudgingly or whether out of duty, we have prepared it and made a nice plate and offered it to the Lord. That's all. So it's still better than what we get outside. But that's not real prasadam. Prasadam. Look at how this Damodar month is going on, and we are studying Damodar Ashtakam, chanting Damodar Ashtakam, and we must have heard of some lectures on Damodar Leela. How Yashoda Maya sat down herself and she was churning the yogurt to collect the butter, to get the butter from that yogurt, and that butter will be fed to Krishna. Her thought was like that. And when she is churning butter, she is not thinking of what's happening in the neighborhood and what is my mother-in-law said and what did my sister-in-law said and this and that. All those disturbing thoughts going on through her mind. No, she was just chanting and singing the glories of Krishna, singing the pastimes of Krishna. And in very happy mood, she was churning that yogurt to get the butter. So that is what binds Krishna. The loving service that his devotees render unto him. That's why Krishna cannot leave those places and those devotees' hearts. Because they are offering to him with love and devotion, everything that they have. Vidurji's house when Krishna went to, she didn't, okay, some places it says she made sak, and some places it is said she offered him skin of banana fruit. Banana is not what she cooked, but she offered with so much of love and devotion. And that love and devotion was not momentarily there at the time of offering the banana. She had that love and devotion throughout. It just happened to be that day, Krishna, when he came, she was completely in that trance that she could not understand. She could not even fathom that she is not feeding Krishna the fruit banana. She was feeding him the skin of banana fruit. And Krishna was accepting it. Krishna ate it. Krishna didn't protest. Oh, no, Mataji, you gave me the wrong thing. He did not protest. They were just like when Sanatan Goswami, he was in Vrindavan. And somehow he got this deity of Madan Gopal. He was hanging the deities in a cloth around his neck. And whenever he had to sit down and write his books, he would just hang the deity on the cloth on a tree branch and let him sing. And what was Sanatan Goswami offering to Madan Gopal? Well, Sanatan Goswami didn't have his house, he didn't have a kitchen, so he would be doing madhukari, he would be begging for some atta, and then he would make balls out of that, and mix it with water, make ball, throw it in fire, and whatever is cooked, and he would offer that way. And Krishna was tasting it, loving it. Krishna once complained that, oh, Sanatan Goswami, you're giving me this nice atta balls, which is very nice. But at least give me some salt with it. I cannot eat it. It's too dry and too bland. And Sanatan Goswami said, now you want salt? Where am I going to get salt from? I'm already begging for you to eat. And now today you are asking for salt, tomorrow you'll ask for sabji, and then you'll ask for ghee, and then this or that. Your demands will never be over. I'm not going to do all this. I have to write books. And Madan Gopalji, he just said, okay, don't get angry. I'll eat whatever you give me. That is love, actually. We might think, oh, Sanatana Goswami didn't love Krishna enough. He should have provided him with the salt. This is what Krishna is asking. But his love was on another level than what we can even conceive of. That is love. And he always had that love for Krishna, not that momentarily love he had. That is what we have to develop to come to that stage. Shabri was feeding Lord Ram the fruits, bear. She was eating them first and then she was feeding to Ram. And Ram was relishing it. Ram was not relishing the bear fruit. Ram was relishing the love and devotion and the dedication of Shabri. That's what we have to develop. So one has to be very careful when performing devotion service. Consciousness has to be properly placed. Like Prabhupada is saying, when he is completely free from false ego, he becomes non-attached to all material things. And that is a stage of self-realization of Brahman. Completely free from false ego, that is a stage of self-realization of Brahman. We are not even at Brahman stage. Forget about Bhagwan stage and forget about lovingly serving him stage. That stage is called the Brahma Bhuta stage. When one is free from the material conception of life, he becomes peaceful and cannot be agitated. That is described in Bhagavad Gita. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So the desires will always be there. That's what the shloka says. Is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires. So desires will always be there. But he does not give in to those desires. And that kind of person can only achieve peace. Text 54. Brahma Bhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labate param. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. So now after that stage of self-realization, the next stage is of being fully joyful, blissful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed towards every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotion service unto me. Madhbhaktim labhate param. To the impersonalist, achieving the Brahmbhuta stage, becoming one with the Absolute is the last word. But for the personalist, pure devotees, one has to go still further to become engaged in pure devotion service. This means that one who is engaged in pure devotion service to the Supreme Lord is already in a state of liberation, called Brahma Bhuta, oneness with the Absolute. Without being one with the Supreme, the Absolute, one cannot render service unto him. In the Absolute conception, there is no difference between the served and the servitor, yet the distinction is there in a higher spiritual sense. So Brahmbhuta stage comes when we are self-realized, means we are not in the bodily level. Now we are at the Brahman level, a spiritual level, beginning of spiritual level. So that stage, it says oneness with the Absolute. Oneness with the Absolute doesn't mean one merges in Absolute. It only means we have the same desire as the Supreme Lord. In the material concept of life, when one works for sense gratification, there is misery. But in the absolute world, when one is engaged in pure devotion service, there is no misery. The devotee in Krishna consciousness has nothing for which to lament or desire. Since God is full, a living entity who is engaged in God's service in Krishna consciousness becomes also full in himself. He is just like a river cleansed of all dirty water. Because a pure devotee has no thought other than Krishna, he is naturally always joyful. He does not lament for any material loss or aspire for gain because he is full in the service of the Lord. He has no desire for material enjoyment because he knows that every living entity is a fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and therefore eternally a servant. He does not see in the material world something as higher and something as lower. Higher and lower positions are ephemeral, means temporary, and a devotee has nothing to do with the ephemeral appearances or disappearances. For him, stone and gold are of equal value. That is a Brahmbhuta stage. Means then he is already at the spiritual stage of life. And the Brahmbhuta stage is the first stage of self-realization. And this stage is attained very easily by a pure devotee. In that stage of existence, the idea of becoming one with the Supreme Brahman and annihilating one's individuality becomes hellish. The idea of attaining the heavenly kingdom becomes a phantasmagoria, and the senses are like serpents whose poison teeth are broken. So at that stage of Brahmbhuta, which is not easy to attain, but one who has attained it, it's like all wonderful. Idea of attaining the heavenly kingdom becomes a phantasmagoria, meaning he is not interested at all in heavenly kingdoms. What is there he's going to do? And the senses are like serpents whose poison teeth are broken. So senses are compared to snakes actually also. And the snakes, when they are not the snakes where the poison teeth are broken, the regular snake. When he's there, he's hanging around, and then when that sense becomes agitated, the snake becomes agitated, means, and that the snake has to bite the person, means to make him go crazy. So this is what the senses do. But one who's at the Brahmbhuta stage, senses will still be there. Sense gratification will be there, but it is spiritual. It's not material. And the snakes with the broken teeth, the front tooth, which releases the poison, if that thing is broken, then nobody has to fear the snakes anymore. So this is what happens when one is at the Brahmbhuta stage. The senses become they have no effect actually. They have no adverse effect. As there is no fear of a serpent with broken teeth, there is no fear from the senses when they are automatically controlled. The world is miserable for the materially infected person. But for a devotee, the entire world is as good as Vaikuntha, or the spiritual sky. The highest personality in this material universe is no more significant than an ant for a devotee. For a devotee, it doesn't mean he disrespects somebody, but he doesn't really care fully to any significant material person. Such a stage can be achieved by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, who preached pure devotional service in this age. So Mahaprabhu and Mahaprabhu's instructions of chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and chanting in which way, chanting in what state of mind, that is important. So if we chant that way, then the progress is guaranteed. So I'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I always have same question like this. This prescribed duties, like now we have all the duties which are like just doing something actually. There's nothing like a prescribed duty for us.
Yeah, Kalyuga, na, everything is topsy-turvy here. There's nothing fixed, and nobody is also fixed in their Varna and Ashram. So we just try to do the best what we can. That's all.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll stop here. You all have a wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you. Jai Shri Ram.
Thank you, Prabhuji.